And we always said 1900, But, of course, in 40 there would have been more than that. But it was a small town. There was no development then. It was just the village and East Sandwich, the old parts of East Sandwich, and very sparsely populated in South Sandwich,
And did you go to, talk to me about what I hear is the minstrel shows.
Yes, we did have minstrel shows. The church had minstrel shows. And we would be in minstrel shows as children. 12 years old, we'd be in minstrel shows. We would sing. And then as an adult, I was in the last church minstrel show, I believe.
And where did they take place?
Well, the last one for the church we had at the Henry T. Wing School, in the regular school, the original Henry T. Wing Auditorium. That was the last minstrel show that I was in, and that was a church. Yeah, the church had that. Yeah.
Now, was there a Father Clinton Hall? And can you tell me, do you remember anything about going to the Father Clinton Hall?
Well, the Father Clinton Hall was the USO. That was the church bought that. That was a hardware store years ago, Kelleher's hardware store. And then the church bought it, and they used it as a hall. And they called it Father Clinton Hall.
In 1939, the town celebrated its 300th anniversary. And a lot took place during that time, activity at the casino. So can you tell me what your recollections were of that time or in the celebration, or any remembrances you have of the casino? And mention the casino when you
Yes,
talk.
I do remember the casino. And I remember they used to roller skate in there. And I know, I think I probably went there to roller skate. And it was a beautiful building. It was really very nice. And it was used for a lot of things. They used to have dances there, and that I heard about, and functions there. And it was really a wonderful place. But I think most people remember it for roller skating in my day,
Okay.
But I don't know what year they took that down. I don't remember. And the baseball field was there too, behind the casino.
And where is that today? What's the location?
Where
was the casino
on
located?
School Street. It was right on School Street. Now it's Beale Avenue. When you go into Beale Avenue, it was right there on the right. It was a big, long building, and it always had beautiful floors in it. I can remember that. And there was a small rail that went around the whole dance floor. But I can remember just, vaguely going there.
Now, Beale Avenue is named after the doctor.
That's right.
Do you remember him, and what can you tell me about?
Oh, I certainly do. When I was first married, he was our doctor. He was still practicing, Dr. Beale. He was still practicing. He was always my doctor growing up. In fact, he's probably the doctor that delivered me. Yeah. And he was always our family physician.
And the street
house
was
calls.
named after him.
It was named after him. Yeah. Those are the days when they made the house calls. And in fact, the day my dad had a heart attack, Dr. Beale took him in his car to the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a great man. He was really a great man. Everybody just thought so much of him. He was so good. Yeah.
And what is his office today?
It's a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
It's right next to where my father-in-law lived, Dr. Currier. They live side by side.
And when you were married, did you still stay in that, what I'd call the Jarvisville section of town?
No, I moved to School Street. We had an apartment in the Murphy House on School Street, and we just stayed there for a year, and then we purchased our prison home. So we went.
Which is where? Where was your prison home?
On Cross Street now. And we purchased that house, and it was a fixer-upper, as they call them today. And so we went home to live with my mom, who was widowed by then. and we went and stayed with her till we could live in it. It wasn't livable when we bought it. No,
Was there plumbing or electricity
it
in that home?
wasn't. There was a very just adequate electricity, but no plumbing. So, and it was a duplex. It was one of the sandwich glass houses, and it was a duplex with one front entrance. So we made it one home, and so we had to work. We had a lot of work to do.
And you had to
So
put in bathrooms.
we had to do it all. We had to basically tear most of the inside down, and take off the sheds and the coal bins and whatever.
Now, how long have you been there?
57 years. Hmm.
Do you remember the train operating? I assume you remember the train
Yes, I
operating out
do.
of the station.
I sure do.
Tell me about that.
I can remember the train, and it was a great big thing. We used to go down when I was younger. We used to go down and go to the train and see the people get off the New York train. We called it the New York train. They would come to New York from New York for the weekend, or for the summer or whatever. And they all came by train then. And we used to go and watch the people get off the train, and then we could see them when they would leave. We'd see them go back. Yeah, but we that was a big thing, to go and see the train come in with all the people coming for the summer.
Mhm.
And my dad had a taxi business too, so he would take a lot of the people over to Katuitt and over in that area that would come for the summer. And then when I was in high school and after high school, the train was still running. I used to go to Boston all the time to shop on the train. Another friend and I would go and spend the day in Boston.
You take the
Yep.
morning train?
Morning train, the 7 o'clock train. Hmm.
And when would you
Yeah.
return?
At 7 at night. Yeah. I think it would leave Boston after 5. It was a long ride, they'd stop all the way around. But we took the train, yeah. It was great. It took a while, and that's what people don't have the patience today to take that time to get to Boston when you can drive in an hour or so, But we would go on the train. And there were several ladies that commuted to Boston on the train. Every day they went to Boston on the
Really?
train. Hmm.
To go to work?
Go to work and then come home. Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Now, did the train run down to New Bedford?
No. Wareham. It went to Wareham and then went up Middleborough and up that way.
Okay. Now, sounds like you left the Cape frequently to do
Well,
shopping.
we'd go shop. We would go to Boston at least once a month, this girl and I. And also, we used to have to go to New Bedford to really get something special. That's where we would clothes shop or something like that. We would go to New Bedford. There were many wonderful stores in New Bedford.
So New Bedford was considered
It was a shopping
fine place to go
Yes,
to.
it was. Yes, yeah. That's where we would go. Not Hyannis as much, but New Bedford. Yeah.
And you take a car.
We'd go in the car. Hmm. Yeah.
When did your family first have a family car?
Well, my father had one for many, many years because he was always in business of some kind. So he always had a car. Hmm.
So we've talked about the 1930s and the 1940s, or the 1950s. Have I missed something that you'd like to talk about during that period of time?
No, we lived very uncomplicated lives. Nobody had to be going somewhere all the time. And we stayed in our own little neighborhood and played there, and everyone looked out for each other, But we had really great childhoods.
And
Always-
was your mom working?
No, my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she did work once in a while. She did go out at night. My mother was a practical nurse, and she would just go at night and stay, and then she'd be home. My father would take her at 11 or whatever, and she'd be home in the morning. Yeah, but she didn't do that all the time. But she did do that. But that was the only thing she ever did, and But we just had fun together, you know, and we entertained ourselves, really, you know, which was kind of uncomplicated as today. They've got to be busy all the time doing things, you know.
Mhm. Well,
But we didn't.
and
And if the boys drove, they drove old cars, you know. When we were in high school, there was always someone from South Sandwich that drove, and then he would take us in his car, and we'd drive all through the woods roads and, you know, all around like
I've heard
that.
that people would drive their cars through the wooden
Woods, yeah,
paths, through the woods,
That's
because it was
right.
faster.
It was faster, yep. And as young girls, we did a lot of walking. We used to walk over the boardwalk and up over through Town Neck. That was just pasture then, and there were just little paths in there where they could drive an old car, the man that owned it, and we would walk through there. We walked a lot, yeah. I guess it was for something to do. And
Well, a lot of people who will be listening probably don't even know where Town Neck is and what it
No.
was like. So
Yeah.
describe to me Town Neck, where it is, and what it was like when you were a youngster.
Well, it's over by the beach, and there was just nothing there but blueberry bushes, high bush blueberries, and just all vegetation. And years and years ago, Mr. Murphy used to have his cows over there. It was just a pasture land for them, but there absolutely was nothing on that. And then in the 40s, they sold it, and that's when that development came in. And but up until that time, it was just plain pasture land, and then just brush and whatever.
And now we have the Hemisphere Restaurant.
Now we have the
and-
restaurant, and we have all the development, yeah. But that started in the 40s,
Okay.
yeah, the late 40s or early 50s.
And were there street lights in town back in the 1940s and 30s?
Yes, we had streetlights until about, I think, probably 4 years ago, when they decided that it was too costly to have them. But they are missed. They really are missed. You know, that was too bad they made that decision. But
So
there
in some-
are
so
a
in
few
some-
now here and there, but not what there was. Every street had a couple on it, at least one, not two. It's pretty dark now if you walk at night.
Oh.
Yeah,
So in some ways, it was better then than it is now.
with lights, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Because there was always a corner where there was a light, you know. And as I say, every street had at least one light on, and every corner, like intersection, seemed to have a light. Yeah. So we missed the lights, really. But I guess it was a cost thing. Well, they didn't want sodium vapor, I guess, because they weren't colonial enough.
Now, did you do any volunteer work in town?
No, I just helped out where I could if anybody needed me, but I wasn't committed to any one particular thing. I belonged to organizations, and
Were you with a group called the Ladies Auxiliary?
yes, I was.
Tell
I
me
was-
about that organization
was
and
a-
what you did there.
The fire department. That was a group of ladies that.
What was the name of it?
Sandwich Sirens, we call them ourselves. And we formed that so that when there was a fire, and if it was at any length, we would get food. We'd make coffee and sandwiches, etc., because we had a lot of woods fires in those days, a lot of forest fires. And we would take the food to the fire station, and then the fellows, when they came back, they would have something to drink, cold water and lemonade and coffee and sandwiches, and then the other visiting fire departments that would come in, and sometimes they would take, if they had a chance, they'd take some of the food out to them if we didn't get in the way, but normally they had it when they came back. And we'd raise money because it was a volunteer, and everything they wanted, they had to pay for themselves. It was not a town department then, as it is now. And we worked with them when they wanted to get an ambulance in the town, and they went door to door to collect money for that. And they used to have a fireman's ball, and we used to have a great time. We used to have a great time, yeah. It was a very social event. And they used to have chicken barbecues to make anything to raise money, because they had to buy. And then they finally had to buy equipment for the ambulance, and it was totally a volunteer thing. So it was, we did a lot for them.
And do you remember when the fire department was, the new fire station was built?
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Tell me about that.
Mhm.
And Howard Kroll, do you remember Howard?
I sure do, yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, he was on the Board of Engineers at that time.
Who was that?
Howard Kroll. Before the fire station was in back of the old Daniel Webster Inn. That was where the firehouse was, in back of the Daniel Webster. And then when there was a huge building in the back there, and that's where the fire station was. That's when we formed our organization, and we would have our meetings on the second floor of where the weather store is now. That's where we had our meetings, across from the Daniel Webster. And then when they built the fire station, then they had to build the fire station. And that was quite a big thing for the town, yeah.
So everything was located right around Main Street and Jarvis Street?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Post office, stores?
Everything, all the stores. Actually, that's why we purchased our home when we did and where it was, because everything was right there. We could walk to everything. We still can, but except the store, the grocery store. But everything was right there, and the fire station was in the back of there. If you can imagine getting out of there when there was a fire, but. That's the only thing that I think that was difficult during the war. One of the things was that where it was a volunteer fire department, most of the fellows went into the service. And there was very few people left to go to those fires. And fortunately, we didn't have any problems while they were gone. But I've seen an old picture of these three fellow people staying at the fire station, and they were all very elderly, because they responded, because they knew there wasn't anybody to respond. So we were fortunate in those days, really, that we didn't have a catastrophe while they were away, because it was volunteer. Yeah, it was small.
And then right beside that, you have the Sandwich Public Library. Did the townspeople use that a lot as they do today?
Oh, yes, we did. We used it a lot. We used it. When I was in school, we used it a lot. But
we're talking about the library.
The library, right. Of course, it wasn't as active as it is today. But you couldn't talk in the library. You could not speak out loud. You had to whisper. And you even whispered to the librarian if you wanted a book or whatever. And of course, some of the boys would go in there and get behind some of the bookcases there and kind of act up a little bit, and then they could get away from the two elderly librarians before they get caught. But they had a good time in the library sometime. But you had to be very quiet in the library. Yeah.
Wow. So tell me about looking back at the whole lifetime in Sandwich. How would you capture the spirit of things? Or what do you like about the town? And is it different? Is it the same? What's your reflections on it?
I think I grew up in a wonderful time, and I have a lot of good memories and good family memories, and a close family, and some close friends, and the same girlfriends I still have to this day. And it was wonderful. Everybody supported everyone, and everyone looked after each other. You could walk anywhere, and there was never any doubt in anybody's mind that you weren't safe wherever you went. You would go alone. It wouldn't make any difference. And then if someone saw you that belonged in your neighborhood and they thought you weren't conducting yourself properly, they would tell you. And they would tell you to go home, that your mother would be waiting for you. And we would, And so it was a great time. And but it's great today, too. I enjoy my life today just as much.
Now, your maiden name is, what is your maiden name?
Ellis. Yeah.
And Ellis is a well-known name in town.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about the Ellis family from wherever you want to begin, back 1800s or?
Well, I had 4 brothers, and my oldest brother worked for the First National, and he worked in Sagamore for the First National. And then he grew in the company, and then he managed the store in Buzzards Bay, and he worked all his life for First National, and he retired from there. And my second brother was a state police officer, and he lived in Hyannis, but his last assignment was in Boston, and he lived in Hyannis. And then my third brother lived in Sandwich. He worked for he worked as a young boy for the A&P, which was in Sandwich also, up where the number 2 Java Street is now.
Mhm.
He worked there, and then he worked for, they left, he and my other brother left and worked for Stone and Webster for a while.
Mm.
And then he came back and he worked for the Buzzards Bay Gas Company, Cape Cod Gas Company. And then my third brother, William, was tree warden in the town of Sandwich. He planted all those beautiful trees that are in flower in the spring. And he and I together had a nursery and a flower shop on the corner of Beale Avenue and Main Street for 20-odd years, Brookside Nursery and Gardens. And he took care of lawns and gardens, and we planted, and we had a flower shop together.
Mm.
And then I had a sister, and who married a local fellow. She was a telephone operator growing up. So we were always very busy, and a large family, but an active family. And my brothers